Tu matatia turamatia, te tuapapa o te mata tu Aotearoa, ki runga, ki raro, ki uta, ki tai, koia ko te manakitanga, te whanaungatanga, te pono me te whakamana I te ako, homi e, hui e, taiki e. E te ti, e te tā, e ngā iwi katoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai ki tēnei piringa Rauhuia, haere mai ki tēnei Huihuinga kōrero. Whakatau mai rā ki tēnei Terenga Rauhuia, mana o le Moana. Ko Kim Bonington toku ingoa. He tohu tohu mātua me arotake ngaio I te tari o matatu o Aotearoa. No mai kia piri, no mai kia tata. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. My name is Kim Bonington, and I am a Senior Advisor at the Teaching Council, and I am a teacher. Today for our Rauhuia Symposia, we'll be joined by two Pacific leaders, Dr. Michelle Johansson and Melanie Cottingham, who will be exploring Pacific perspectives on leadership, helping us to consider how we connect with other leaders as we traverse the vast oceans between our unique contexts. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. This symposia consists of presentations from our speakers, during which your mic will be turned off. You are welcome to place your name and the place where you are teaching in the chat, however, but very soon, once Michelle actually starts speaking, we're going to turn the chat off just to ensure that nobody's talking over top of one another, but you will have space to chat with the participants in the breakout room. Those breakout rooms will happen after each presentation, and they will allow space for you to discuss the presentation, your learning, and how that learning can be applied to your context. We have enlisted the service of sign language interpreters. If you require this service during the breakout rooms, please send a chat message through to Maya Adler, and she will arrange this for you. So we're just going to make sure that I speak for a little bit longer, while those of you who need to send that message to Maya can do so. So Maya's name is spelled M-A-Y-A, Adler. Secondly, for display, we recommend using the side-by-side view of Zoom. This will give you the view of the presentation and the presenters and sign language interpreters at the same time. It is also helpful for us, in order to be able to know who is here, if you could possibly ensure that the name that is shown at the bottom of the screen where you can see your face highlighted actually says your name. If it does not say your name, we'd love you to change that if it's possible, and you can do that by finding the three dots in the top right-hand corner of that screen where your face is highlighted. If you hit those three dots, you'll see rename is at the bottom of those list of commands. We plan to send the presentation out to you in the next few days, and a recording of the symposia will be put up on the Teaching Council website in due course. Okay. Maya might be busy dealing with, here we go. Kia ora, Maya. I'm now pleased to introduce you to Dr. Michelle Johansson. Michelle is a Tongan mother, theatre maker, and educator. She serves as kaitiaki at Ako Matatupu, Teach First New Zealand, growing exceptional people to teach in low decile schools. She is Kai Whakahaere at Maya Centre for Social Justice and Education and the creative director of the Blackfriars. South Auckland, Decile 1, born and bred, she is proud to work alongside amazing teachers, warriors, storytellers, and change makers to re-story Pacifica in the largest Polynesian city in the world, to activate Indigenous knowledges, to grow future leaders, and to hold courageous spaces for our young people to walk tall in all of their worlds. Today, Michelle will share her story. Kia ora, Michelle.
Oh, kia ora. Just wait till the screens are sorted out for a moment. I think our spotlight has got swapped around. So right now you can see the beautiful face of Mel Cottingham, who you'll hear from shortly. But there we go. Tēnā koutou, ke aku nui, ke aku rahi, he honore he kuroria, ki te atua, he maungarongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Ka tuku ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa, ki te kaupapa whakahirahira o tērā nei. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, nā whakalofa lahi atu, taloha ni, polovinaka mā lolelei and talofa lava. The warmest of Pasifika greetings to you all today. Thank you so much to the Teaching Council for having me along. Thank you to Tanya for her beautiful translation of what I'm saying right now. And thank you to you all. It's been a busy day at school, no doubt. Thank you for giving up this time in your afternoon to come and hear some things, some Pacific perspectives, and some things about our Pacific learners in Aotearoa. I will start sharing the slideshow now. So I guess I want to start, and I know that Mel will refer to this as well, but with Epele Hau'ofa's idea of our Sea of Islands. So as a Pacific person, those of you who are Pacific or have studied Pacific studies in any way know that Epele Hau'ofa, Tongan scholar, is one of the founders of Pacific thought and the way we think about things and think about the Pacific. So if you haven't read this seminal piece called Our Sea of Islands, then please do. I would say that the core idea, and please feel free to discuss this in your chats, is flipping the script from this idea of the Pacific Islands being small and insignificant islands in the South Seas to actually being this enormous blue continent of Oceania, and a sea of islands that is strong, connected in ancient and ancestral ways, and really, really powerful. So I am a child who has grown up in the divide between two cultures. So these are my grandparents on my father's side, so Danish and English by heritage. I'm third generation New Zealand born on that side. But the side that we'll be drawing on today is this other side. So this is some of my Tongan family. This is my mum right here. And she is number 7 of 15 children born in a small village called Whatai in Tonga, on the island of Tonga. She was the first from her family to come from the islands to Aotearoa to this lands of milk and honey to make a better life for her family, for me. She grew up in a small house with no running water, no power, all of these things. As she was growing up, so she came over in her 20s. As she was growing up, I have 107 first cousins. One of those cousins worked in a shoe store in Nuku'alofa, the capital of Tonga. And as I was growing up, I heard these stories about my cousin. So she worked in a shoe store. She got to go to work, wear nice clothes, wear clean clothes, handle money, have conversations with people. She didn't have to go out into the fields and do hard labor. She had a nice job, a clean job. So as I was growing up, what I heard was maybe one day you could work in a shop and this could be your life. You could have a clean job, talk to people, wear nice clothes, and that would be lovely. So this is what I heard growing up. So I guess I want to say about that part of our job as educators is to open those opportunities, open up those trajectories for our young people. Because since then, my mum's dreams have changed, have got bigger, have got broader. The horizons that she sees are much bigger. And I say when I sit in these spaces that my mum worked her whole life, served her whole life on a factory floor so that I can be here today. I also want to say that when my mum came to Aotearoa, so her name, she has a beautiful Tongan name. Her name is Ilaisane Eniketi Matalave. But when she came to Aotearoa in the 1970s, at the time of the dawn raids, her name was changed to Mary to make it much smaller and easier to pronounce. And I also say in these spaces that colonization is alive and well, and these things still happen today to our young people. So I am here for South Auckland and for our young Brown scholars in Aotearoa. So as Kim said, I'm South Auckland, born, bred, budded. I live there, I laugh there, I love there, I learn there. I've seen the South Auckland things in the chat. Hello, hello, hello to you all. It's lovely to see you all here. Whetoi, I see you. Love, big love. One of the things about living in the largest Polynesian city in the world is that people are always trying to fix my kids. And what I really want to say is we need to stop doing that as a nation, because our kids are not the thing that's broken. All of my work, all of the things that I work in are to answer this question. And what will it take to change the world for young Brown scholars? So today I'm going to give, those of you who have heard me speak before, I'm going to give my usual Pacific State of the Nation talk, and then I'll come around to some ways in which Pacific people think about leadership. There is no one Pacific voice. The disclaimer is that this is just my thoughts and my musings on my own experience. I think too often Brown folk are asked to speak on behalf of all Brown folk. I am not the Tongan speaking on behalf of all Tongans. I am just speaking on my own experience. So this is what drives me. This question is at the heart of all of my work. And there are a few things that I want to say to our teachers gathered today. And I guess they're really about, we know that the statistics and the state of the nation are really dire for Pacific people, and I'm going to be sharing some of that with you, and it will not be a surprise to any of you. But I think it's important to bring to this work a few lenses. So the question that's going to be guiding me today is we need to stop looking at what's wrong with our Pacific kids and start thinking about what's strong with our Pacific kids. So that will be the focus. That will be where we end up. And that will be what hopefully I send you into your breakout rooms to discuss. So the first part of this is that there are no saviors needed in the teaching profession. I think too often folk come into teaching because they see themselves as the Miss Honey or the Miss G or the Coach Carter of the world. They're going to be the freedom riders. They're going to be the ones who like save our kids. And I can tell you from our kids' point of view that they don't need saving. They are more likely to save you than you are to save them, as we know when we've been working in this profession a little bit. I also want to say that we have an education system that doesn't really work for anyone. So even though Māori and Pasifika students are particularly disadvantaged within our education system, it's not really working for anyone. If what we wanted was a schooling system that would reinforce class structures and keep everybody where they're at, then we've won. But if what we want is an education system that actually liberates people and enables them to live in that land of milk and honey that my mum envisaged for me, then some serious change is needed. I'm going to read this quote from an Aboriginal activist group. And it says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." So let's not try and save our Pacific kids, but let's work together to make it better for all of us. So here are some things on the state of the nation in Aotearoa. So these are the Pacific groups that make up the Pacific population of Aotearoa. So we have our nations of the realm here, so the Cook Islands, Niue and Tokelau. So Cook Islands and Niue, self-governing and free association with Aotearoa, and Tokelau and free association. For those of you who aren't familiar, we call these three nations the nations of the realm, and citizens of these nations have access to Aotearoa. They can come whenever they want and be part of Aotearoa, but we can't go there, unfortunately, for those who have thought about moving to the Cook Islands before. Also want to say that Aotearoa has a particular obligation and a relationship with these three countries. So they, in many of their schools, they teach the New Zealand curriculum. So when we're designing New Zealand curriculum tasks, we should also think about how they will come into effect in our realm nations. And then the next three nations are the ones who contribute the most to our Pacific populations here in Aotearoa. So Fiji with around about 20,000, Tonga with just over 80,000, and Samoa with by far the most with 180,000. So all of this adds up to about 380,000 Pacific people in Aotearoa. And of those 380,000 people in Aotearoa, there are many cases what I would say in crisis. So the Pacific annual average income, annual household income, is about 33% below the national average. So we're looking at an average income of $19,000. There are 124,000 kids, Pacific kids, living in poverty. In South Auckland, that means 1 in 2. 1 in 2 kids in South Auckland live in poverty, do not have what they need. And then the bottom one, there are 195,000 living in crowded housing. So 40% of Tongans live in crowded houses. I live in South Auckland, of course, and I do not know a single family who keeps their car in their garage. Those of you who are Pacific will know what I mean. The next factors are around unemployment. So 13,000 Pacific people unemployed, which is not so bad, but 80,000 in low-skilled occupations, which has meant probably that they've taken a job out of necessity rather than out of design. Oh, sorry. Going the right way now. There are 2,186 cases of chronic health problems in Aotearoa. So we think about the fact that if you are Pacific, you're 50 times more likely to contract rheumatic fever than any other ethnic group. We think about the non-communicable diseases. We think about diabetes, and that's the huge effect of diabetes on our communities right now. We think of our vulnerability to things like COVID and the measles and other diseases that the rest of the population does not suffer from in such extremity as entire ethnic groups. And then the last bit there, education. So 77,000 Pacific people of school age, that number is growing. So if we think about the median age for folk in Aotearoa, the median age of the whole population, it will be about 30 years old. And the median age for Pacific people is around about 13 years old. So we have a very young and a growing population. However, of that population, only 28% will have access to further education. So I'm not saying that university is the way to go for everybody, but I do think that all our kids should have an option. And too often they're steered into pathways that will not give them that opportunity at the end of their compulsory schooling life. If we break this down then, we've got 380,000 people and 243,000 cases in crisis in Aotearoa at the moment. So some of those stats break down like this. So this is the Pacific occupations chart. So you'll see there at the bottom, this labourers, the prolific, the huge number of labourers from the Pacific population. These are the folk who had to leave school early during COVID to support their families. These are our essential workers. This is where they've gone. If we think about child poverty, this is a confusing graph, but it's going to make sense in the next slide. But as we said, 1 in 2 in South Auckland are living in poverty right now. So this is these are some of the measures of material hardship that are used globally. I've highlighted in red here ones that I've experienced in my life. So if you can tick 6 items on this list or more, then you're in material hardship. If you can tick 9 or more, then you're in severe material hardship. So I think about, I'm just going to go down the red ones, but you can think about how your family or those that you know have been positioned in such a way as well. So do not give presents for family and friends on special occasions, or do not have home and contents insurance. And then a little bit further down, bought cheaper cuts of meat or bought less than they would have liked, or they postponed visits to the doctor or the dentist, or they did without or cut back on trips to the shops or other local places, or they put up with being cold to keep costs down. And those things are like embedded and have become embedded, I think, in who we are. Like my mum still will keep her heater off to keep costs down, even though she doesn't really need to. now. Delayed repairing or replacing broken or damaged appliances. And then things like we feel very limited by money available when thinking about purchasing clothes for your shoes or for yourself. So most, I think, Pacific families work to make sure that the most vulnerable among them, so the elderly or the very young, have what they need, but those in the middle often sacrifice and go without so that others in the family might have theirs. And then could not pay an unexpected or unavoidable bill of $500 within a month without borrowing. So when that car tire goes flat or you need a new battery, people just can't afford to go and get it fixed. And things like paying the bills, rates, electricity, water, or being late on those things, not because you forgot, but because you're waiting for the next pay cycle so that you can pay it. So all of these things add up to what would be considered material hardship. I say in my line of work a lot that we work in doubles and halves. So Pacific people are twice as likely to be represented in a negative statistic and half as likely to be represented in a positive one. So you'll see on one side there, this is the unemployment rate with Māori and Pacific people very highly represented, and European and Asian at the bottom there. And then on that chart flips on the other side for education. So twice as likely to not pass UE, again, imperfect measure, but that's okay. So Māori and Pacific at the bottom there, and Asian and European at the top. So with these things in mind, the idea of Pacific people being deficit or being somehow lacking is exacerbated by these statistics. And then we get comments such as these. So Pacific kids at my school just aren't as smart as the other kids. Pacific kids are failing. Things like over this side, Mele's doing well. Why can't they all be like Mele? Why don't the family come to parent interviews? Don't they care? Sina's all right. She just needs to stop hanging out with that group of friends. Or we do things to kids, like interventions. So if we take Peter out of PE, he can work on his reading. Or what interventions can I implement to help them achieve like the Pākehā kids? So I present this slide because often we view Pacific kids as somehow failing. We talk about underachievement. We talk about Pacific underachievement. We talk about Pacific failure. We talk in really deficit ways about Pacific families and where their priorities are, when actually what we have built is a system that fails them. So the more that we can flip the narrative in your own schools and your own spaces to, from Pacific kids are failing to we are failing our Pacific kids. And that is going to have a huge effect on our country in the years to come. And it's only going to grow. We have a young and growing population. It's going to, if you want to look at it from economic perspective, it's going to cost us money. That's not the perspective that we should be looking at it. We have a moral obligation to make things better for all of our children. So my challenge is to stop blaming the kids for the faults in our systems. So whenever you have your school data and you start thinking about Pacific kids failing, let's flip that and start talking about how we're failing our kids. So that's part one. Part two is hopefully more hopeful. So part two here, I've got these pictures of these coconut trees here. And we've talked a lot about the coconut tree in the Pacific and in Aotearoa as related to the Pacific. And so most of us know that the coconut or the niu, you can use all parts of the niu. You can use its husk, you can use its shell, you can eat its flesh, you can drink its juice. Every single part of the coconut is vital. But I have here these coconut trees because in the recent extreme weather events, we have observed just how flexible and how resilient the coconut tree is. It will sway in the winds, but it will not break. The winds will not break it. The storm will not break it. It will stand up strong and it will rise back to where it began. So let's think about our kids like that and how amazing they are. Let's honor them for that. And let's think about what's strong with them. So a couple of years ago, I was really privileged to be involved in a leadership project in South Auckland, where we wanted to grow Pacific leaders through polycultural leadership. So really playing to their strengths and growing them in that way. So I've had the really rare opportunity, I think, to hear from multiple children across multiple schools and backgrounds and worldviews about what they think about leadership. And it comes down to some quite simple principles. I'm sorry there are no great answers, no solid answers for you. But there's a Samoan proverb, "Ole ala I le puli o le tautua." Please forgive my pronunciation, Samoans out there. But the path to leadership is through service. So these qualities here on the left, service, tautua, stewardship, kuleana in Hawaiian, responsibility, duty, and duty to the collective, all come through as really strong Pacific leadership traits. Boiled down, you might say it's the difference between I was born with rights to I was born with responsibilities, and the responsibilities that Pacific people feel towards their villages, to their homes, to their families, and what they will do to support their families and homes and villages. I'm just going to give you two things and then perhaps send people off into the breakout rooms. I'm aware of time. But the first thing is that relationship is everything. So as a Pacific person, I know who I am based on where I am, what we're doing, and who is with me. I often joke, like, if you are the eldest girl in a Pacific family, like, you know your role, you know what needs to be done, you do what needs to be done, and you take responsibility for things. As an employer, if I hear from someone who's applied for a job at my organization and they're the eldest girl in a Pacific family, I'm probably going to hire them because they're going to be amazing. It's built into their role in the family. I think about quite a hierarchical, like, Tongan society. If I'm in a room and we had a funeral at our house quite recently, I was backstage working out the cups of tea. So it was me and my children there. And then my husband's sister walks into the room, and then the dynamic completely changes. I'm not the boss anymore. I'm going to hand that over to my husband's sister, who's my children's whāhu. So it becomes a very different space depending on who's in the room. If I go out and I serve the cups of tea, I might go to my husband's parents first. But then the whaiwhekau comes into the room and it's going to change again. So when we talk about the position of a leader, it very much changes given where you're at in the family and who you are in the room at the time. In some spaces, I get to be Dr. Michelle Johansson, which is very silly. But then in other places, I'm just like, girl, go and make us some tea. And it really keeps you in line, but it really is a very relational way of working. So number one, relationship is everything. And then number two is that leadership happens. Like, I think quite often in Western society, there are leadership courses set up. You enroll in your leadership course, you go to 10 sessions on being a leader, and then you're a leader. But I think that in Pacific society, it just doesn't happen like that. Like, I think it happens one of two ways, basically. And one is that you're born to it. So you're born in this position in this family, and so you must lead. Like, it's your job. You're going to pick it up when your parents tell you to, and when they're gone, when you're the one at the head of that family. And it happens in the other way too. It's accidental. And I think that service happens that way as well. I know that if I get up in my office and I'm just looking in the cupboards for something, I know that all the young Samoan girls in the office will come and help me, regardless of what they're doing. They'll put it aside in order to serve. So I think that leadership happens in funny and unexpected ways. And I don't think we train particularly to be leaders, but I think that it's thrust upon us, and that can be a really beautiful, amazing, and powerful thing. When you've got your kids in your classroom, that you know who the kingpins are in your class, you know who's calling the shots, you know who those people are, and you know that you have to befriend them at the beginning of the year, because those will be the ones who help you. Those will be the ones who support you, who serve. And if you've done that, you will have that whole class eating out of the palm of your hand, really. So understanding how Pacific leadership works can be quite a powerful tool for a teacher, I think. I'm going to skip over these ones. Let me just, there are a million values frameworks out there for Pacific values, Pacific leadership, Pacific anything. If you have your phone and you would like to, there is a QR code there to the Pacific values framework, which is being used in conjunction with NCA. If you haven't seen it in your schools, you'll probably see it at some time in the next couple of years. But it offers some very practical ways to use these, to implement these values and to embed them in your curriculum and pedagogy. I'm going to stop talking. I'm aware that I'm out of time. This is my prompt for you. This is my thing to think about in your breakout rooms. And that is, instead of what's wrong with your Pacific learners, what is strong with your Pacific learners? What would you like to share about your Pacific learners with your colleagues today? And I will stop sharing now. But kia ora whanau. It's been lovely being with you today. Hope to see some of you in the breakout rooms. Kia ora.
Oh, malo lava. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for sharing with us a little of your thinking, your knowledge, and your experience of leadership through your own unique Pacifica lens. I think I want the t-shirt that reads what's strong, not what's wrong, or at least the coffee mug, the keychain, all of those. A really powerful message. Thank you so much. And indeed, a great thing for us to discuss as we move into our breakout rooms. As you were speaking, I was thinking about the leadership capability framework and how the educational leadership capabilities were incorporated into your kōrero, and perhaps we can think about that ourselves as we move into the breakout rooms as well. So these breakout sessions will be occurring for approximately 15 minutes, providing a little bit of time for you to think about what resonated with you and what your key takeaways are as a leader in your context, and what you might do as a result of hearing Michelle's message today. So we're just going to move into those breakout rooms now. You'll also get a warning once they are going to, when we get to a little bit of time before they end. Kia ora. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Welcome back. We hope that you had a good time connecting with your colleagues in those breakout spaces. We know that time is short, but connections can be strong nonetheless. And we will give you the opportunity to go back into another breakout room at the end of our next speaker's presentation. So it is my pleasure now to introduce you to Melanie Cottingham. Her passion for Pacific education stems from her education experience. She commenced primary school in Rarotonga, then Wellington. She boarded at a private girls' college in the Wairarapa and would travel to Tuvalu for Christmas holidays. She attended university, completing her Bachelor of Management degree, and would travel often to Niue for Christmas holidays. Melanie has leadership experience in the public and private sectors, and also tertiary and primary, Kura-Auraki, Rauhuia, and TESOL in Seoul. In terms of her teaching experience, she is currently completing her master's. Melanie is the chairperson of the Pacifica in the Bay Trust in Tauranga, Moana. The Indigenous Pacific Trust delivers programs to support teachers and senior leadership in early childhood centres and schools to enact the Action Plan for Pacific Education 2020 to 2030 and Tapasa, Cultural Competencies Framework for teachers of Pacific learners. Welcome, Melanie.
Whakalopalahi atu. I'll just share my screen. He whakalopalahi atu kia matulu o si, ka mihi ahau ki te atua ihu kraiti, ka mihi ahau ki te kingi Māori a tū heitia, ka mihi ahau ki ngā iwi mana whenua o Tauranga o Aotearoa, ka mihi ahau ki te Teaching Council o Aotearoa, mata tū mata ora, nau mai haere mai ki te tūtala o mana o te Moana, mana o te whenua Moana. Ko Newcastle upon Tyne, ko Mautere o Niue o ku iwi, ko St. John's Chapel, ko Alofi ko Hakupu o ku hapu, ko Te Moana Nui a Kiwa Te Moana, ko Tyne Te Awa, ko Cottingham Rauhuia, ko Tarangi o ku whānau, ko Hingoha ko Melanie Cottingham. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you all for joining us this afternoon. Like Michelle acknowledged, I know that you've probably had a busy day. And like Mania mentioned in our breakout room, for some people it's a joy and it's a privilege and it's our calling to serve our communities. I'd also like to say, whakau e lahi mahaki, thank you for your hard work and the time that you invest in our students and in our families. I am the chairperson of the Pacifica and the Bay Trust that has a vision for Pacific education excellence. And like Michelle mentioned, I think that I'm there by accident. Our trust is in Tauranga Moana. This is my unique practice-based perspective, along with being tangata niue, that I will tūtala about today. I will discuss Pacific perspectives on leadership, or my perspective, and how we can connect with other leaders as we traverse the vast oceans between our contexts. My main focus in this discussion is to talk about my perspective to enable or to action Pacific education excellence for our children. Firstly, here is a map of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, and my passion for education came from my education experience, which Kim mentioned. With your eyes, I want you to search for the islands that I spent my childhood in and around Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. I was born in Wellington, and when I was 2, we moved to Rarotonga, which is the capital of the Cook Islands. I returned to Wellington in Standard 3, where I finished primary and intermediate. And then I went to a co-educational college in Wellington until year 9, and then my parents moved to Whenua, the capital of Tuvalu. I boarded at a private girls' college in the Wairarapa, and I was one of 7 Pacific students in the school. We travelled to Tuvalu via Fiji in my Christmas holidays, and that was with my older brother. And the trip from Fiji to Tuvalu took 3 days by boat. And the first trip was really harrowing, rocking and rolling on the Pacific Ocean. And in some instances, when we travelled up, we would have to dodge some cyclones that were in the area. If we were lucky and our dad saved lots of money for us, we could catch an Air Nauru 12-seater plane that only took 3 hours from Fiji to Tuvalu, or to Whenua. When I was completing my Bachelor of Management degree, I travelled to Tuvalu for my holidays, and then my parents moved to Niue, and so I travelled to Niue via Tonga. And then there was one year that I was fortunate to go to Samoa and spend a month there travelling around on a surfing trip. I travelled to England to connect with my Geordie roots in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is not on the map. And it was really interesting trying to fathom what people were talking about, because although Geordies were speaking English, I had no idea what they were saying. And I have had and still do employ the same communication and listening skills to try and figure out what some of my Pacific people and also the South Korean people that I worked with had to say, even though they were speaking English. I taught English as a second language in Seoul for 6 years in the public and private schooling systems, and the culture was really similar to Niue, and so it was easy. It was an easy life and familiar. I returned to Aotearoa and trained as a primary teacher, working in Kura Auraki and Reorua with Whaia Simone, who is in our Zoom today. Ngā mihi ki a koe, Whaia Simone. I won a study scholarship to study my master's and then worked as a teacher educator in the tertiary space, and dotted in amongst there is event management and management in the public and private sector. My unique practice-based perspective as a tangata niue / Geordie, serving as the chairperson of the Pacifica and the Bay Trust, is informed by these different cultural and working experiences. My Pacific perspective on leadership, when I was looking at different definitions of leadership, this one resonated with me, which involves a social influence process whereby intentional influence is exerted by one person over other people to structure the activities and relationships in a group or organisation or a village. This definition resonated with me, and the following tūtala, what I will say, highlights the relational framework I belong to, and that belongs to me as a tangata niue. This is where our epistemologies as tangata niue comes from. Some of your colleagues and students may experience similar relational contexts. Same, but different. So let's link the definition of leadership with tangata niue perspective of relational theory as it pertains to God, to village, in my case, a lufi, to honour thy father and thy mother, the tuakana-taina relationships, and the brother and sister relationships. This is a photo of Alofi Church in Niue. God is our main man, which is evidence in both Niue and many Niue communities in New Zealand. Statistics New Zealand in 2018 recorded 70% of Pacific people are affiliated with a religion, mainly Christianity, which is a really interesting space to be in when we operate in secular schools. So one must consider a person or student's church obligations, church attendance, service to church, tithes, church events like White Sunday, which we just celebrated down here in Wellington, community fellowship and making connections with church ministers, pastors and reverends. At all formal meetings, informal gatherings, including at home, events and ceremonies are acknowledged. We acknowledge and give thanks to God. I did this at the start of my talanoa. Like tangata whenua, we will then acknowledge those attending the meetings and or gatherings in order of position. God, church ministers, matua or the elderly, then important people including perhaps the High Commissioner, government officials, doctors, lawyers and accountants, and then kia matulu osi, or everyone else. This is how it rolls. As a child and also as a grown-up, I've attended and attend many church services. I've learnt to sit still for hours in the pews, not understanding Niuean and just sitting because that is just how it is. You will see a photo of a headstone. That's my grandparents who were instrumental in the construction of the Alofi Church. They are buried at the entrance of the church on the left-hand side just as you walk in. And this is a privilege given to church ministers. When I return to Niue, which is quite often, I know that every time I go to church, my grandparents are monitoring my attendance. The village that I come from, or that my mum comes from, is Alofi. Some people in Alofi are related and some aren't. Everyone knows everyone and who is related to whom. Everyone looks after one another. My grandfather studied dentistry at Otago and my grandmother was a nurse. My grandparents were leaders in Alofi. As leaders, Grandma was part of the village weaving groups, the knitting groups and crocheting groups. And so this was at a time of colonisation. She supported home cleaning programs, how to cook stew programs, lol, and hosted visiting government officials and other very important people, including visiting church ministers. She organised feasts and performances to entertain and acknowledge the guests. Here, my mum does the same thing. My grandfather worked as a dentist, then he became a church minister, then the mailman delivering mail around the island, and then when my grandma passed away, he transformed the family home into Pelini's guest house. My grandmother's name is Pelini. He would go fishing into the bush to tend to the taro plantation. Celebrations in the village were, and still are, planned around the life cycle of the taro, which is 9 months. These celebrations include whakauetou, which is the new year, where families share their taro harvests, fruit, unga collection, unga the coconut crabs, tins of corned beef, frozen chickens, with the ministers to say thank you for the past year and to say thank you for their blessings that are coming this year. Church ministers then share the kai with the village, and the same thing happens here. This next slide shows my grandparents and speaks about the importance of honouring thy father and thy mother. There's my grandparents are there on the left, then my mum's in the middle there. She's a hiapo artist or a tapa artist, and she also writes creative stories. Then there's my parents on their wedding day. My grandfather is a dentist, and then my mum's brother was the Premier of Niue, Sir Uncle Sir Tokitalangi. I was always told in church to honour thy father and mother, and also to listen to your elders and to speak when you're spoken to, which I know is still happening in our communities today. There were and are high expectations in our education. Mum was always repeating to me, make sure you get an education so that you don't have to depend on a man. And this is still relevant today. As a child, I was taken everywhere with my mum. We went to te vaivai making sessions in the Cook Islands. She took me to knitting groups in Tuvalu, which is quite an interesting thing to think about when it's really hot. There were exercise groups and prayer groups. Now, as a grown-up, I'm my mother's Uber driver to and from church sessions, to the shops, to and from the dentist and the doctor, and to and from holiday destinations. As a child, and I still am a child while my mum is still alive, I listen and observe behaviour and ways of doing things, like attending meetings and the order of services, and how to make tikihi, which is one of Niue's national dishes, how to make fofo, which is our headlays, what happens at rites of passage ceremonies like the hifiulu, which is our hair cutting ceremonies, and the huki selinga, which is our ear piercing ceremonies. These happen in our communities here. I know that when I visit families, I always have to take kai, and usually it's KFC. And 2 years ago, I learned that when I take KFC, that I also have to take something to eat with it. So something like some bread rolls or a salad or some taro. And this is just how it is. And my knowledge is evolving about my culture, just like your students will be. And this is also when the culture is evolving. Now then, these are two very important men in my life, or tuakana in my life. Sonny Louis Bayer, who works at the university at Massey, and Dr. Alvin Misikulina. These are leaders in my life at the moment who are helping me to develop, or we're working together to develop a Whangaho Niue language and culture strategy in Wellington. I watch and learn from them the respectful ways that they conduct tūtala, or the conversations and meetings, and formulating the strategy in a tangata niue and whakaniue way, or the niue cultural ways. Growing up, tuakana included older siblings, cousins, and non-relatives who were responsible for taking care of us. I was told not to swim past certain coral rocks when we went swimming, otherwise I would get it from my tuakana. And if anything happened to me, I know that my tuakana would have got it from their tuakana, who would have been my parents. In Niue, tuakana will always include matua, or our elders. They are the holders of our history, our language, our stories, and our whakaniue, or our niue cultural ways of being. What you might find among your students is a special relationship between brothers and sisters. This is a photo of my older brother, Charlie. He's a year older than me, and he's my best friend. As a tangata niue man, he is responsible for looking after and protecting both my older sister and me. And I know these sacred relationships exist in other Pacific Island cultures. My brother is very tall and has a powerful presence, but he's really quiet and shy. He was and still is always on the lookout for me to ensure our family name is protected. Unsuitable suitors were moved along, and the long lines have now disappeared. From birth, he has watched over me at kindergarten in Rarotonga, at school, Avatia School in Ngatangia in the Cook Islands. He watches over me when we were travelling and partying, and he would often say to me, "Go and get changed. That top is too revealing." When Mum and Dad moved to Tuvalu, my brother and I went to boarding school in the Wairarapa, and because we were best friends, we hung out together at morning tea and lunchtimes. My brother got incredibly bullied for this by the other boys who teased him about hanging out with his younger sister. And it was so not how we rolled, and it was really different to the majority of the Palangi students. So we stopped hanging out so that we could stop the bullying, and instead we rang each other every night after school. Now then, these are some insights into relational contexts that influence my leadership. These are also insights for you to acknowledge with students in your schools. When formulating this tūtala, I noticed that I didn't talk about what I do or my leadership style that's coming up. I used the word we. It is because I know that I am part of we, my brothers and sisters, the tuakana teina, my father and my mother, the village, and God's big happy family. Now, looking at the leadership theory in an overview, and when we're looking at the difference between transactional and transformational leadership, a lot of what I've talked about in the village is associated with inclusion. There's a bottom-up influence. We talk about shared leadership, the tuakana taina partnerships. And so what I'm going to talk about now is leadership from my practice-based perspective in some of the Pacifica and the Bay Trust's programs. In our programs, we tūleva. We make sure that we nurture the spaces between people, places, and objects with care, respect, and generosity. And we do this to always maintain harmony because it influences Pacific education excellence of our children. The Pacifica Festival in the Bay, when we're looking at leadership, transformational leadership, it's about meaningful involvement, it's people-focused, and it's from the bottom up. Our Pacific Village in Terenga, Moana is celebrating our 9th festival this year. We have 40 performing groups registered this year and anticipate over 1,000 performers. The festival is to celebrate Pacific identities, languages, and cultures in ECEs and schools, and it is to support the Ministry of Education's Action Plan for Pacific and also enable schools to enact tapasa so that the engagement or involvement is meaningful. If we don't have the festival, our system may not reflect our children's culture. So we're in it for the long haul. I've dedicated 12 years of my life for this. We pour whiri at the festival to acknowledge tangata whenua, and then, like in the islands, our church minister grounds our festival in the presence of God. Our tuakana are the contractors we have enduring relationships with. We're inclusive and people-focused, and in particular, we pay attention to supporting our teachers and who are supporting our groups, because the majority of the teachers are non-Pacific, and we know that they are busy and that their work is often not remunerated. So you could say our leadership is supporting from the bottom up. The growth in the festival demonstrates how we tūleva and how we have nurtured our relationships over the years. Talanoa Ako is a 10-week program for parents of Pacific learners that enables parents to learn more about the education system and to enable them to challenge the education system. The form of leadership in this program is shared, and it's also, we focus on partnerships. We open and close with a prayer, and there's always kai. Our village, who we share leadership with, is our parents. Our parents are tuakana of their children and their interests and aspirations. We are tuakana, or we are known as tuakana in the education sector, and so we work together. We partner with other organisations in our village that include school communities and key organisations like NZQA, curriculum subject teachers, experts in neuroscience and career pathway organisations. And this is all to make sure that our kids are looked after. At the first Talanoa Ako program we ran in Tauranga 4 years ago, a parent requested our trust find funding that enables an inexpensive way of supporting their children's NCEA learning. So when a tuakana asks us to do something, then we serve. So we found funding and we initiated the Whenua Homework Hub. Whenua means really awesome. So in essence, it's the really awesome homework hub. Now then, this is set up because of the parents' request. And we also acknowledge that it's not because of our kids being broken. Our kids are strong. And what is wrong is the education system that doesn't reflect their culture. We find the funding, the teachers book the study rooms and roster curriculum teaching support, and roll out the program 1 day a week in 5 high schools. We open and close with prayer. We sing songs and grace. We eat kai together, and the students, along with their cousins and siblings, do their homework with the support of teachers and parents from our village and from the schools. When an accounting teacher is not available, we find an accountant from our Pacific village. We pay attention to increasing capacity and inclusion. Teachers of Pacific students approach us, and we do as much as we can to support the teachers, because they are looking after our children's education. Now then, how can we connect with leaders as we traverse the vast oceans between our contexts? Michelle referred to Ipele Hauofa, a Tongan scholar who wrote the well-known essay, Our Sea of Islands. His essay speaks about the Moana being our highway that envelops our histories, our stories, our people, and our skills. Each island has an expert, and the other islands would engage with to utilize. So, for example, the Cook Islands were known as the vegetable gardens of the Pacific. The Samoan island of Moana was known for its skilled craftsmanship in repairing waka and sails, and Aitutaki were known to be expert drummers and mesmerizing hula dancers. Our Sea of Islands was a busy place, and the vast ocean was our highway connecting these skills, products, services, and solidified relationships. So, a way to connect with leaders as we traverse the vast oceans of our contexts, and noting that the vast ocean of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa takes up 1/3 of the Earth's surface, then we can identify our village needs. Who are your tuakana in your village? Who has key skills to help you advance Pacific education excellence and challenge contexts and environments? In my presentation today, leadership is identifying and engaging with people who know more than us to benefit our children. Our church ministers know how God gives life to our people in our programs. Parents know the most about their children, so let's talanoa about aspirations for their children. The maths and English teachers know the most about their curriculum subject areas. The accountant parent knows how to teach accounting. Latu To'omanga knows the most about the brains of children and tools to limit gaming and social media. And there are so many people in our village who know more than us or more than me to make what we do a shared responsibility. When we engage with people, we tūlewa and know the relationships we have are enduring, nurtured, and strengthened each year to sustain our vision. The Pacifica and the Bay Trust is building on the work of Ipele or Hauofa. We have used the appreciative inquiry approach to develop Pacific professional learning and development that highlights the distinct identities, languages, and cultures of Pacific Island students. We have started with Tonga, Niue, Kiribati, and Samoa because we have tuakana who are working their way through their masters who are from these islands. Our next focus is to develop a Cook Island and Tokelau program to acknowledge all the realm countries in New Zealand. Our trust has just recently won the MOE contract as the preferred supplier to deliver tapasa PLD in the Bay of Plenty area up until 2026. So we've worked really hard and we're really proud to be recognised as tuakana in Aotearoa for this mahi. This is a small insight into my Pacific perspective on leadership, and I hope it gives you some understanding about the context of some of your Pacific Island students, and also it enables you to support you in your personal and your professional voyage. When I was growing up in the Cook Islands, every day after school we would go to Mama Mary's house who looked after us, and when the tide was low we would go fossicking on the reef, and when we were hungry these kina were our takeaways. So my question to you now is, what are your takeaways from my tūtala, from what I've shared with you? And do you have any comments or any pātai? Nō reira, ngā mihi ki a koutou.
Kia ora, Melanie, whakaoelahi, and thank you for sharing with us your lived cultural experience and history and how that relates to transformational leadership. And the other thing that struck me about your presentation was that you also spoke of strength and utilizing the strengths of our village in order to build shared responsibility for our rangatahi and how we move forward in education. Thank you so much. I know that we are going to unlock the chats now Maya, if you could potentially do that so that people can put any comments or questions for Mel, but we are going to move into the breakout rooms as well. So we're going to be in breakout rooms now for perhaps the next just over 10 minutes or so. And then when we come back, we will farewell each other. Kia ora. Thank you, Maya. Kia ora, everyone. As we're waiting for the last remaining people to come back in from the breakout rooms, please remember to feel free to put any questions or comments that you would like to go straight to Michelle and Melanie in the chat. Maya's telling me that everybody is back now, so that's great. Thank you. I really hope that the discussion today was really valuable for you. You can see here that our next symposia is actually happening on Thursday, the 26th of October, not the 25th of October. The Librans of us will know that Thursday is the 26th, not the 25th. But our next symposia will focus on mana o te whenua awa, exploring Māori perspectives on leadership, how we engage and learn in our unique context to grow our own community network of leaders. So please, can you follow us on our Matatu newsletter, on our website in the upcoming events section, and through our usual social media channels. However you found out about today is a great way to keep learning about our upcoming symposia. If you have ideas on future topics for our Rauhuia Symposium or would like to be considered as a presenter in the future, please get in touch with us here at the Council. And I want to thank you all for taking the opportunity to connect with us today. Hopefully you'll head back to your school centre or workplace, knowing that the seemingly vast differences and distances between our unique contexts provide opportunities for us to connect and find common ground, find shared values, and learn a little about the diverse community of leaders we have the privilege to work with within the teaching profession. Thank you again to Michelle and Melanie for sharing their stories and their kaupapa. We will close now with a karakia. Kua ea ki runga, kua ea ki raro, e rongo whakarahiria ki runga, kia tina, tina, home e, hui e, tai
Ai,
e.